Welcome everyone to another CTC Software Lunch Hour webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis. I'm the Technical Evangelist at CTC Software, and today's presentation is being brought to you in collaboration with APAL, who is our partner there in Australia and New Zealand. In today's discussion, we're going to cover the BIM Batch Suite. We're going to go over a fairly comprehensive introduction to this suite, and certainly while I'm going through things, feel free to throw questions out there, ask away, and we'll try to answer them in line, or there will also be a large questions and answers period at the end. And as always, these webinars are being recorded, so you can always come back and visit them in the future on our YouTube channel and share them with anybody who may not have been able to attend from your team today. So that's always a great little value add there, I think, when you can go back and review stuff in the future. So let's talk about the tool set. The BIM Batch Suite really is a tool. It's a small tool set, but it has a lot of power to really help you, the end users of Revit or BIM managers, process some of these key workflows really rapidly, en masse, really. We have a focus on importing and exporting of some data. Really, the exporting portion is important, and some reloading of some information, and also some processing of some project information. So we're going to take a look at all of these. This suite, just to be clear, is meant for Revit users who do have a bit more experience inside of Revit. And we've got other suites like the BIM Project Suite that's designed for everybody. But this suite, the Batch Suite, really is designed for those users who know a little bit more and feel really comfortable in Revit. Some of the tools are incredibly powerful and can do a lot of great things, but certainly you want to be careful who gets their hands on them because, with great power and lack of knowledge comes great irresponsibility sometimes. So you want to be careful about that. I'm going to talk about a lot of these tools and demonstrate a few of them. We're not going to go super deep into every tool, but I'm going to try and cover these as well as possible. Now we're going to talk about a few things. I'm going to define the basic functionality of all of the tools. There's 5 in total, major tools on the Batch Suite. I'm going to demonstrate a few of them. We're certainly going to talk about some of the more popular ones that you might want to use on a regular basis. We're going to show you how you can get kind of started with the suite, and basically how you can get your hands on it, download a trial for yourselves if you want to try it out, and of course use the free tools forever. And I'm also going to talk a bit about the installation and a bit about the deployment options that you have. And since I'm not big on death by PowerPoint, I'm going to jump live into Revit. So I have Revit opened up here in front of us. I happen to be in Revit 2018. I'm going to cover this right now straight up front because invariably somebody asks these questions. I am in Revit 2018 specifically because I want to show you this works in older tools, in older versions of Revit. Very specifically, it works in Revit 2017 all the way through Revit 2021. So 5 full versions of Revit are supported. And we feel that's important. I know that Autodesk doesn't always support 5 versions. They're usually supporting the latest 4. We like to support a little bit older because every once in a while, especially those of you in the engineering space, you have to use some older versions of Revit once in a while, and we try to maintain as much as we can sustainably. So 2017 through 2021. Once you install the suite, I'm here in the stock Revit interface. You'll notice that there's a CTC software tab inside of here. And this is where the vast majority of our suites will go. There's a BIM Batch Suite, Manager Suite, Project, and Hive. We've already done webinars on the Project Suite and the Manager Suite, and today we're talking about this one, the CTC BIM Batch Suite. So these tools, and actually all of our suites, all the major suites, have sort of 2 halves to them. This one here is maybe a little bit more difficult for some of us to see, where there's a lighter purple color and a darker purple color, but all of our suites have light colors and dark colors. The light ones are free forever. You never have to pay for those. These ones that are a bit darker, they require some form of licensing. And our licensing offerings are standalone and network licensing. So you really have a lot of flexibility in there. You can either do individual licenses standalone, or if you want to do a network license and share it amongst your whole team, by all means, feel free. So fantastic, right? So what are the 5 tools that we have here? Well, there's a family exporter and a family loader. They basically do opposite things. One dumps loadable families out of your project, and one of them loads those families en masse right back in your project. It can save a lot of time. If you're a BIM manager, these can be some great tools to harvest some of the content that exists in the project maybe use some of the tools that exist on the Manager Suite to fix that content, and then turn right back around and load it back in. And this is also a really great little set of tools if you need to load the same piece of content into multiple project files at the same time and not have to open up each one by hand manually and reload it or reload a collection of content. This can be a real easy way to load that stuff back in. So two great free tools that are a great partnership with your content management type workflows. And this is also a great way if your team members are maybe using some content from, say, manufacturer sites, and maybe they don't exactly align with your standards. Well, you can harvest those manufacturer families out in a very easy way and then fix them, whatever tools you have for that, like the BIM Manager Suite, and then turn around and load them back into those projects as a BIM manager when they're fixed. So you can have the end users leveraging the exporter and your BIM management team or BIM administration team leveraging the family loader. It's a great little workflow there. I'll dig into some of those tools and show them to you in a minute here. The first paid tool here is actually the one tool on this suite that generally all Revit users who work in Revit after a while are interested in, especially when we're working on real projects and we have to collaborate with outside team members. The plotter and exporter tool can save a ton of time. This one really allows you to do the basic PDF printing that the Bluebeams of the world or the BIM 360s of the world can do as well. But it also dumps out DWGs and DGN files. You can do IFC, you can do, Navisworks models, you can print directly to paper, and you can do all of those things, or as many or as few of them as you need, with one button click once that tool is open. You just go and it'll do all the stuff. You can walk away, go grab lunch, come back, and it'll be done. You don't have to babysit the process. And that's key. That can be a real big headache when it's time to print and you got to allocate like 4 hours of print time because you got to babysit those processes that aren't automated through other workflows. This tool can automate the vast majority of that and save you a lot of time, gives you back some design time. We'll actually open up and show this tool here in a minute. The Project and Family Upgrader. This tool is one that BIM managers are the ones that tend to use it, but they use it like once a year or very rarely. But when you use it, it can save a ton of time. Out of the box, when you first install the new version of Revit, Autodesk provides this journal file script that's supposed to help you upgrade libraries of content. But I have never seen it, even on their stock library, out of the box, it's never functioned correctly. It always fails. It's always frustrating. And it's just a headache. It's a headache to do that upgrade process. And you've got your own libraries of stuff that need to be upgraded. Well, this here, the Family Upgrader portion, you can leverage this as a very inexpensive suite to rapidly open and audit and upgrade your content to the next version of Revit. Saves a lot of time. Makes it real easy. Now, if you want to have a bit more power on that, I would recommend taking a look at the Manager Suite for the family portion, but this can really be an inexpensive way of doing some quick upgrades of your families. And the other one here is the Project Upgrader. Now, this is the one that I use this tool for the most, is for project upgrading. Because with this tool set, you can actually have it upgrade a project either in place or copy it to a new location, and at the same time, it can upgrade all of the linked models. In fact, it upgrades the linked models before it even upgrades the main project, which can be a huge headache because every time you do that process of upgrading, you have to, copy all the stuff to a new location, then upgrade it, and then manage all the links and repath them all, possibly renaming files to the new version of Revit if you name your files that way. And man, that's a headache, and it takes, half a day or more to actually do that upgrade, where this thing I can tell it to do the upgrade and walk away, or use a side computer and continue to work on my main computer and not have to babysit this whole process. Hugely, hugely beneficial, massive time saver, and it's a huge headache saver when you do that process, once a year or once per project every, few months, whatever that is, right? So huge benefit there. I'll open this up and kind of talk through the projects portion of this upgrade. And the last tool on this suite, and I'll be opening up and showing this one to you as well, this is a hyper powerful tool. If you perhaps visited us for our previous webinar on the BIM Manager Suite, we've got a lot of project cleanup type tools. Many of them are, eyes on the project, doing some cleanup like Project Cleaner, Import Link Manager, Type Swapper. Well, I tell you what, you can script all that and programmatically have the project processor do all those steps and more. This is actually more powerful than a few of those tools. The thing that I love about this tool is that when I'm doing these cleanup tasks repetitively on the same models, say I'm receiving an architect's project model, or I'm receiving, maybe I'm a contractor and I'm receiving all of the consultant models, and I want to continually do a similar type of cleanup process on all of them, this project processor lets me do that. I don't have to go hands-on and visually inspect and clean things up. Now, I love these tools still, and I use them on a regular basis when I'm subjectively going through and cleaning up. But when I've got something that I have to do in repetition, that's where this batch suite comes into play. I can have this project processor pre-set up. And I'm going to show you some cool things you can do with this as well to rapidly clean a project based on rules. You might want to use different rules, and that's the glory of this tool. You can do that. So let's take a look at a few of these. I've been talking for a while and pointing at things on the screen, but I want you to actually see some of these tools and what they can do. The first one I'm going to talk about is the family exporter. Now, I want to show you why this tool can save you so much time. In Revit, let me scroll down to my families list here. In my families list, y'all probably already know that with Revit families, you can right-click any individual family and you can save it out of your project. That's fantastic. Thank you, Revit, for giving me that. You may also know that you can right-click the families list up here and save this out. Now, if you've ever done this, you probably know the headache that I'm about to explain. When you save families from this list here, it tells you can pick a folder, and when you pick that folder, it dumps every single loadable family out of this project into one directory that is unorganized. There's no understanding unless your family naming is really clean about the categorization of things. It's really frustrating. You cannot do the same thing by right-clicking on categories, disappointingly. I can't right-click a category and say, save all my doors out, which is kind of silly. I should be able to do that. And even if I could, I'd want to be specific sometimes. Like maybe there's a few doors in this list that I know are problematic. I want to save out, these few right here, this 5. Well, I can do it one by one, right-click, save, and I got to browse the path each time, and that's frustrating. So this family exporter can save me a lot of headache. When it opens up, it scans all of my loadable families, and it organizes them by default by category. Now, you could organize them by geometry, model, or annotation. I personally like to organize by category. Now, if I wanted to just save everything out, I could do that. Check all the boxes with the check all button here, tell it where I want it to go. In this case, I've got an exported doors folder on my desktop. Tell this to save all 263 families out and organize them in subfolders by geometry and category. So this is very much like the out-of-the-box organization, where it has model or annotation, and then it's got categories inside of that. And if I just click export, now I'll be sitting here for a while because it's going to open up and save each family out, but it'll export them in a very clean way out of this project to organized directories, and then I can use those directories to run specific fixing tasks with some of the other tools that we offer, or do whatever you want with them, right? The nice thing here is that I can also say, save out all of the doors and all of the windows, specifically those categories. Or you know what? Let's not do that. Let's just save out from the doors, very specifically, these few families here. I've got a couple of these in my list right there, the 5 that maybe I know are problematic. I can save them out and specifically export those to a specific folder out here on my desk. Maybe I don't want to do any organization because it's going directly to an exported doors folder. Export, give it the few minutes it would take to save them out, and I'm done. And I don't have to keep browsing every time and right-clicking all over the place. I just make some choices and go. This is also a searchable list, find all, manufacturer X, named content, check all those boxes, save that out, right? It's a super huge time saver. And for a free tool, it's just a headache saver. And then later on, if you wanted to turn back around and load a bunch of families in, you choose a bunch of families from a folder and either load it into your active project or load it into a collection of projects that it can open up, reload those families, save and close. Sync to central, give up control and close. So immensely powerful there. Let's take a look at another exporter here. I talked about family exporter, but let's look at the plotter and exporter tool. This one does a very specific kind of export. So everything that you can do from file export or file print, right? Print to paper, print to PDF, export different kinds of CAD formats or FBX or IFC or all the things, right? All this stuff. You can plotter exporter here with this as well. So what this will do is look up some settings. Now, I was just recently dabbling with somebody else's settings, and so this isn't actually configured with my normal config. Let me basically do a brand new one here, so it's empty, and we'll take a look at how you can configure this real fast. I have already pre-saved in my wildcard search library different types of searches that I like to use, like my Navis export or my export Navis collection here of 3D views, right? You can add a wildcard yourself and you can set up the rules exactly as you want. I can search for specific views. I can look for certain view types of a certain kind, like a 3D view. I can look for views of specific disciplines. And then I can use properties down here to actually isolate out exactly what it is I want. All of the properties of the view, a specific view type, a classification, whatever my custom parameters are. I can find those views and have them be a part of this collection. If you're using view templates, fantastic. Those properties can all be preset. I use that very heavily, like my export Navis collection here looks for all views in my project that are 3D views. And it looks for a view type that specifically equals export Navisworks, which is a type of little text string that I've added to my view template from my export Navisworks view templates. And so these views are already in my project someplace, and all my projects are sort of the same way with the same view templates. It makes it real easy for me to know exactly which views, which 3D views are supposed to be dumped out. And so I can drop this in my Navisworks export collection. I've got a few other views, like my Cad Export views. These are ones that maybe I want to dump out to my civil engineers. So I have like export Cad, or maybe I've got a few floor plans that I want to dump out for my fire protection team, or I don't know, for people working in Sprint Cad, or the electrical engineer who maybe isn't in Revit for whatever reason. I can have these views pre-ready to go with this tag. It doesn't matter what kind of view it is. This looks for all views, 3D, floor plans, doesn't matter. If it's got export Cad, it knows to kick it out if it's a view, not my sheets, my views, right? And so I can grab these and drop these in my DWG export area, which is where I want that. Or maybe I want those same views dumped out to MicroStation. Or maybe I want them in DXFs, right? I can have all these views dumped out the exact same way to all these different formats, whatever I might need. You name it, you configure it, it's your setup, right? I may also want to have, say, specific sheets. And so in my sheets collection here, I've got like my architectural sheets already pre-set up. I've got some general sheets, and I can start dropping these into my PDF print collection here. Architectural, demo, existing, new. I've already got the wildcards set on these so that it knows exactly that I'm looking for all sheets where it's an architecture sheet and the phase is existing. I could use the sheet number. I could use part of the sheet name. You name it, your rules. I can set up these rules and basically have those sheets be found. Right, I've got my structural sheets down here as well. I can grab them, drop them into my little PDF collection over here, and I can sort these however I want. Normally I want my general sheet first, or my title sheet first. And then I want to have my structural existing sheets, and then demo, and then new, and then architectural. So this is not in any way alphabetical, but I want them in a specific order. And if I'm printing to paper, I can keep them in a certain order. If I'm printing to a PDF, maybe I'm doing a single PDF that's multi-sheet, I can put these things in a very specific order. And then in my PDF settings here, this is going to take it a minute to actually grab my PDF printers. Once this queries this, it's going to look for all of my printers on my computer and then say, oh, but I'm only looking for those that are PDF ready. So it'll get me those. This suite, by the way, actually installs with a PDF driver that you may want to use. Maybe you don't, that's up to you. But I got, in my case, on my computer, the default Microsoft PDF and the CTC PDF writer. I'm going to use this one in this case. And I have some print settings that are pre-saved into my project that are ready for PDF. Like all of my sheets are E1 size, ARC E1, imperial sizing. So I can choose that, and it's going to know to use those settings. I can tell it where, for each of these different kinds of exports, where I want these to go. So I can browse this out to where my print directory happens to be. So I think that's here near my Revit models, and I've got an exports directory, and I've got PDFs in the mix. You can see I've got some dated subfolders here. And that's because after I've chosen this main PDF folder, I have it automatically, when this runs, create me a subfolder with a date stamp on it. I could also put a timestamp if I care to do multiple prints in the same day, but I usually just do a date stamp personally. And then, because I'm creating sheets here, I'm going to be combining these views and sheets into a single PDF, and I want to keep them in the order that I've selected. And I also want to choose exactly how to name this file. I can preset my naming convention here. So I like using the project number and the project name. And then I like using, in this case, the processing date. I like to date stamp my file. And sometimes I'll do a timestamp on this. And you can see how this is going to name the file down here. Now, if I was doing separate files, I may want to, use things. Actually, let's just remove all these guys here for sheets specifically. Let's remove all of this, and I'm going to say from my project parameters, once again, project number, project name, and then I can pull from sheet properties here, sheet number, sheet name, and then once again, maybe I care to use processing date and time on these, and then it'll actually name each of the files by the sheet number and sheet name as it dumps them all out to individual files. You name how you want to do this thing, it'll take and dump them out. And I get similar settings for DWGs. I have full control over the export using my DWG pre-built-in client-specific export settings, or I can do custom settings and modify exactly how these are dumping out the same settings that would exist in Revit. I can do things like automating the deletion of the PCP files, those plot control parameter files that a lot of people don't end up using anyway, because they're not going to print from them, they're just going to link them in. I can export views as external references. Again, I can tell it where to go, and I can tell it if I want a date and time subfolder here. All of these settings, how exactly to name the files. So there are oftentimes questions about how can I control things like the delimiter here. That's a fantastic question. If that was one that you had, sometimes people don't like underscores. They want hyphens, they want spaces, you name it. You can actually control what that looks like. You can control how that is. Now, you don't get to control for each individual naming piece what that delimiter is, but you can change right here what that separator is, and it's actually a setting for the DWGs as a whole or the PDFs as a whole, because you might have different naming conventions for those, but you can use spaces, hyphens, underscores, space dash space, space hyphen space, or nothing, so it won't put any spaces inside of there if you wanted, but you can control kind of how you want that to look. Spaces, hyphens, you name it. Now I have underscores in my file name here, so if I do space dash space, you'll see it here, right? There's the file. Oh, I have file names set up here. Let's go to sheets, right? Space hyphen space. I've got file name, sheet number, sheet name. So there's the file name right there. Then I've got space hyphen space, the sheet number, space hyphen space, right? So you can certainly go in there and change what those separators are if you need to. And again, this is fully configurable for each of the export settings in case you've got different conventions, right? All right. So super powerful tool. Now with this, you can save these configurations. You may have like a general internal check set config and you want to just run that real quick. You could open up a check set and just click run now and you're done. Let it run, go grab coffee, go grab tea, go grab lunch, whatever, it'll do a thing. Or you can open up and have ready to go like the full submittal print set. Maybe you have specific revision print sets and you can actually control that as well. These wildcards can actually understand revisions on sheets and revisions in views. And so I can tell it to go after specific revisions. And I can have that saved as a part of my configuration as well. So yeah, fantastic abilities with this tool. And one final thing that I'm going to mention but not demonstrate here is you can schedule this as well. I can tell this about a whole collection of files. I can tell it at 6 p.m. on a Friday night when nobody's working, open up these models, start to print them. And yes, this works with central files. This can open up those models and it can begin that print process based on these exact rules that you've set up. And it can do it all silently. And when it's all done at the very end, this thing can send you an email and say, hey, I printed all these files, or hey, this particular model had a problem for some reason. And it'll tell you what that was so you could handle that the next morning or the next day or whatever. All right. So that's the Plotter Exporter tool. Really powerful tool. It's actually the flagship tool in the Batch Suite. A lot of people love it for just that reason there. So that hopefully will give you some value. But now also let's take a look at this next tool here, Project and Family Upgrader. I'm going to talk about the project portion of this. Let me bring this on the screen here. Had it on my other monitor. So I can tell it a folder to look in on my server or computer. I don't think I have a proper folder here, but let's go look for something. Actually, I'll use my sample model folder here. This will give me, and it'll also search in subfolders, by the way, but it'll give me all of those Revit models, and it knows what version it's coming from. It scans that ahead of time. So if I wanted to, I don't know, say grab all of my 16 models, my A16s here, and my, let's see, do I have any others? I think that's the only one. Okay, let's go use my 2017 models instead. I have an A17. I thought I had some, good Lord, there we go, structural 17. I thought I had some other ones, but I guess I don't. Well, I can take those models and I can tell it to upgrade, and I can find things like 17 underscore, right? See, my naming convention here is A for discipline architecture, or if I scroll down, S for discipline again, 17, right? So with those, let me just get them all grouped together here. I can make it easier since I'm not scrolling all over the place. A17 underscore project number, S17 underscore project number. I can actually take that 17 and replace it with whatever version I'm upgrading to, which in this case would be 2018. So I could do that. It can copy it to a new location. I could upgrade it in place if I cared to. If I am copying it to a new location, it'll automatically remake any central files. It'll automatically recreate any relative subfolders if links were found in that model that had subfolders. It can copy forward the Revit links themselves and set new relative paths for them. And at the same time, it will do all this renaming of the files. So it'll copy it forward, rename it from 17 to 18 in this case, and then it'll actually do the upgrade, remaking it, doing the links as well, and all that jazz. Or I can do it in place, and it'll leave it in its current directory, still do the rename, and it'll also include those Revit links and rename them as well. When I'm opening these up, one of the things that I personally like to do is open up all. I open up all work sets so I can guarantee I'm getting access to the links themselves. You could just do all editable or all last viewed, but I like doing all when I'm doing this upgrade process. And then when you're doing this upgrade of either projects or of families, in the options, one of the things that I always do when I'm upgrading projects is I always audit them. And this can automate that process as well. So that way I'm not manually having to remember to do that kind of step. It'll do it for me. And I can also delete any backups that go along with it if it was a non-work sharing enabled project potentially. Okay. If I was to click OK here, it's going to take a little bit, but it would go through and do the upgrade, and I would just let it run. I'd walk away and go to a meeting or go grab lunch again or whatever. These tools are great when you want to go grab lunch because it can run when you're not there. All right, final tool before we're done today, and we kind of open it up for any kind of questions and answers. So if you got questions in your mind, start getting ready to type them in, and we'll answer those all in a minute here. But the last tool here is the project processor. Now, once again, if you were in the discussion with the BIM Manager Suite, you know about some of the power of those tools. This tool takes a lot of those project repair tools and puts them all in one tool. And the nice thing is I can actually process multiple projects simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, but one after another in sequence, in series. I can path these to a bunch of files. I can tell it what all my processes are going to be, and it can open them up, do the process for repair, and then close them back down again. Or I can run it on my actively open projects. So if I remove all, let's grab this and remove that, I can add open projects, and it'll use whatever project it is I have, that I have open right now in my current Revit session. So here on the processes, this is what it's actually going to do. And you can do things like running scripts before and after it does some major processing on a project. I can do things like copy a file to a location and then do some things to that file. Maybe copy it back, maybe upload it to an FTP site, maybe share it via some file sharing service to outside consultants. And I might pre-clean my model, copy it, pre-clean it, and then send that out of house, right? And what am I actually doing to it? Well, it's all the things that are here on files and below, before the last scripts right here. I can do things like removing backups, open it up with an audit, automatically open work shared files, detach, and then right away save it. So that's great if I'm doing a script like copy it to this location, then open it with an audit, detached, and immediately save. Or I can forcibly tell it, even if I haven't scripted the copy someplace, to automatically save it to a new location and find and replace properties. So great, powerful tool there. But you can do things like processing things about the built-in inherent project parameters, swapping them out for other parameters. You can do things like swapping them in schedules. You can do stuff like renaming views, view templates, view filters, and sheets by rules. So you can add a rule here to find views that maybe don't follow certain naming conventions of certain categories and whatever, and then rename them based on the properties of the views, right? Nice and powerful there. View templates, same thing. Filters, sheets, same thing. The way that I personally like to leverage this tool set is I like to run through and do the things that from the BIM Manager Suite Type Swapper can help me do. If I know that I have certain line styles in a lot of project models, or I see these line styles creeping up over and over and over again in my projects, maybe they're getting brought in from an old standard project where they're bringing in typical details or things, I might find old dimension styles and or parts of dimension style names, and replace them with the correct dimension style, the one that is my standard that I believe exists in my project. Similarly, with text types, I can find old text styles that might exist in projects and try to replace them with my standardized text type. Line styles, find Anno, replace it with Detail 01, right? You can add as many rules to this list as you want. So that way you can go through and create whatever the rule set is you want for your projects to repair them. Line patterns, fill patterns, materials. This is all about swapping for the correct values of these things, of these different types of styles here. You can also clean out things from your project. This is very similar to the project cleaner tool, but even more powerful. I can delete sheets from a project. I know sometimes architects, engineers that I work with, when they want to send content off to contractors, they want to delete the sheets because they've already printed a PDF set that's part of their export, and what they're supposed to deliver is the model, not the sheets potentially, not the details maybe. So you can actually go through and strip out all sheets if that's something that's interesting to you, or strip out sheets by certain rules. Maybe I want to strip out, schematic design sheets, or I want to strip out presentation sheets that aren't actually a part of a construction document set. You can script that. You can strip out views, again, by rules. Find all my views that have no dependents, that are not on a sheet, and strip them out, delete them. Find views that are dependents that are not on sheets and delete them. I might actually put that first. Find all views that are view type working, delete them. If they have that value of a view type, delete them out of the project. And so I can really rapidly clean something up. If I'm an MEP engineer and I'm commonly receiving architecture models, in a lot of cases, there's only a couple of views that I want to keep. And so I can tell it to keep the views that are not something. And if they're not that, then delete them out, right? View templates you can delete. Filters, links, imports, imagery that might be imported in the project, parameters. If you want to delete certain parameters that are project parameters, you can delete them out of the project. You can delete materials, text types, dim styles, like all the things that you were swapping before. You could delete the things that are then not standard. Okay. And finally, if this wasn't enough and you wanted to go even deeper, you can purge, and you can very selectively purge. Now, this is another way that I often use this on projects on a regular basis. Sometimes I'm not swapping and cleaning. I'm just going in and purging the trash that I know I don't want. Maybe I go in and say purge materials and material assets, and maybe purge fill patterns that I know that I don't need. As the project continues, a lot of times there's a bunch of junk that makes their way in, and I can just purge the unused of these guys. One click of a button, and it'll rip through and do that purge. In a matter of seconds, I'll be done. You can also go through and say, hey, purge all loadable families, or purge all system families that are not in use, and symbols and styles that are not in use, or purge all line types and patterns, right? You name it, you set the rules. You can get this thing to do a full purge, or you can do selective purge without ever having to open up that purge dialog and going through it manually one at a time. Really powerful part about this thing purges 10 levels deep, okay? So if you've got nested families inside of nested families and line components that are used in specific views, maybe you need to go through and clean out those trash drafting views first that aren't being used, that are not on sheets, and then run a purge to clean up the rest of the stuff. And you can, by the way, I didn't mention this before, but you can actually order the exact position of where these things happen. Maybe I want to purge first and swap second, or swap first and purge second. You can drag and drop these subcomponents underneath the file around so you can control exactly what's about to happen. All right. Very powerful tool set here. You have the ability to go through, set up your rules, and control exactly what's going to happen on your projects. Oh, and I forgot to mention this, but you can save and load configurations in this tool as well. So if you want to come back in the future and rerun a specific kind of clean for a specific client that you work with, or certain kind of deliverable, save that. And then when you're ready to use it later, you simply reload that saved config, and it'll know all the processes that you wanted. And you simply tell it either to use it on your current project or a collection of files that you've got on your network. Huge time saver, massive headache saver. Be careful who gets this tool, because as you can tell, this thing doesn't ask any questions. It'll just rip through and do what you told it. If you told it to delete every view from the project, it will do that. So be careful who gets their hands on this tool. That said, within our suite settings, we do have the ability, and you can also control this upon install. we have the ability to control which tools are visible and are not visible. And in our installation guide, we actually talk about how you can silently deploy these tools, install them across your firm if it's something that you wanted, and control which tools are visible using your internal inherent Active Directory. So you can control if people are general Revit users, maybe all they see is Family Exporter and Family Plotter, or sorry, Plotter and Exporter and Family Exporter. And maybe if they're a BIM manager level or a more advanced user, you let them see all the things. Similar to how you give them rights to your family libraries. You can control that same kind of controls here inside the BIM Batch Suite. And that's true actually of all of our suites. Okay, so I'm going to jump over here to the PowerPoint for a minute, and I want to talk about one more point, and that is how you can get your hands on these tools if you don't already have them and you want to try them out. Because you can try this out for 14 days, fully available for you to use everything in that suite. So I'm going to pull up a website here. It's apal.com.au. Okay, this is our partners down there in Australia, New Zealand. apal.com.au. If you go to their site, when you go to their site, go to products. And on their products portion, there's a CTC software option right here. In CTC software, all of our tools exist embedded in their page, and you can get access to it right from here. And you can also contact them for any kind of questions you might have. But here in CTC software, if I go to the BIM Batch Suite, this is the tool set we were talking about today, you have the ability to request a trial and also to get some more information about this suite. And you can also see more about our other suites that we offer that you can obtain through our APAL partners there in Australia, New Zealand. I want to thank you for the time that you've given us already. We always appreciate when you show up live to our webinars. It's entertaining for us. You can ask us questions. I can answer those questions live while I'm talking, and then stick around for some questions afterward.